As the clock struck midnight, the Trump administration delivered a powerful economic blow, slapping a 104% tariff on Chinese imports after Beijing refused to lift its retaliatory measures. What does this tariff war escalation mean for global markets, consumers, and U.S. China relations?
I do just want to point out one thing, that the president, everybody in Washington, whether they want to admit it or not, knows that this president is right when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. In fact, Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, "How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, 'I will not endorse the status quo'?" Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996. Well, President Trump is finally answering her call 27 years later. Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying, "These are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future economic growth." And Chuck Schumer said that in 2007. Finally, in 2025, President Trump is taking action. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede last year's record. The trade deficit had cost American workers millions of jobs at the time. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America, to boost our manufacturing industry. He's doing what's right for the American people. It will take a lot of labor. It will take a lot of effort. But that's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
In a stunning move that reignited global trade tensions, President Trump has imposed a massive 104% tariff on a wide range of Chinese goods. This marks the most aggressive trade measure of his presidency, intended to force China back to the negotiating table. But beyond the headlines, the impact of this tariff hike is rippling through economies, supply chains, and boardrooms around the world.
Just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that she and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
The tariff hike followed a deadline issued by President Trump for China to remove its retaliatory tariffs against U.S. goods. When Beijing failed to comply, the U.S. struck back. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that the administration believes China wants a deal badly, but made a critical mistake in continuing economic aggression. Trump's signature approach set a red line and, when crossed, hit back harder. The 104% figure is both symbolic and strategic. It signals an uncompromising stance meant to grab attention in global headlines, punish Chinese exporters, and force Beijing into concessions. It also reflects the Trump administration's theory that shock and awe economics can shift the negotiating balance swiftly. The tariff effectively doubles the cost of many Chinese goods, making U.S.-made alternatives more competitive. President Trump has long framed himself as a dealmaker, not a warmonger. But his tactic is clear: create leverage by applying maximum pressure. When America is punched, he punches back harder, said Leavitt. Still, Trump has left the door open for diplomacy, stating he would be gracious if Xi Jinping returned to the table. This push-pull strategy mirrors previous tactics used during NAFTA renegotiations and trade talks with the EU.
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He said he's not considering an extension or a delay. I spoke to him before this briefing. That was not his mindset. He expects that these tariffs are going to go into effect. And you said something very important, Elena, in your question. You said the president has captivated the attention of the world. Absolutely he has. And it's about time we have a president in the Oval Office who is putting the world on notice and is putting the American people first and, again, is using the leverage of the United States to negotiate good trade deals.
While the tariffs are aimed at China, American consumers and businesses may feel the sting. Sectors like electronics, retail, and manufacturing that rely heavily on Chinese imports will see higher costs. Small businesses with slim margins may be forced to raise prices or cut jobs. Inflationary pressure could mount, especially in tech and automotive sectors. Beijing faces a difficult choice: retaliate again, risking further escalation, or seek a face-saving path back to negotiations. Historically, China has matched tariffs tit for tat, but with U.S. tariffs now exceeding 100%, its options may be limited. Analysts expect China to target politically sensitive sectors like agriculture or aviation in any countermeasures.
美方仍在对中国滥施关税，一味地进行极限施压，对这种霸道霸凌行径，中方坚决反对，绝不接受。美方如果真的想通过对话谈判解决问题，就应该拿出平等、尊重、互惠的态度。如果美方置两国和国际社会的利益于不顾，执意打关税战、贸易战，中方必将奉陪到底。
Global stock markets reacted with volatility. Asian markets tumbled overnight, while European and U.S. indices opened lower. Investors fear prolonged trade instability could dampen global growth. Companies with international exposure are reassessing risk, while supply chains are bracing for disruptions. Meanwhile, currency markets are watching closely for any signs of a Chinese devaluation.
Todo va a subir, si tú subes a la vez los aranceles, tú también los subes, al final quien va a pagar va a ser la gente de la calle, todo esto como siempre ocurre.
Por ejemplo, para nosotros, yo hablo desde los estudiantes, y ya de por sí es difícil encontrar un piso y pagarte el piso, ya después si incrementa más el precio de la comida y tal, pues no va a ser llevable.
Trump's 104% tariff move is a high-stakes gamble designed to corner Beijing into economic concessions. While it may eventually force a new round of trade talks, the near-term cost could be steep for global markets and everyday consumers. As the US and China square off once again, the world watches and braces for impact.